I'm going to show you how I check to see if there's ceramic tint on a vehicle. We're going to try a couple different ways to remove glue off a back window. This is a ZL1 Camaro client brought in with under 1,000 miles on it. It had already been ceramic coated, paint protection filmed, and window tinted. So this is a BTU meter, and I'm going to show you how I check to see if the tint that was put on here already was in fact ceramic or not. So this is my heat lamp demo, and I got the BTU meter pointed at the IR bulb. So when we go around with the different films, basically the lower the number, the more heat that film is then blocking out of the car. So you can see we got a pretty low number when it comes to the ceramic. So when we check on this car, it gives me a pretty high number, all the way up in the 300s. So I can definitely feel heat with my hand, but this is a great way to show you on camera. So to remove the film, I use a steamer. This is a Jiffy steamer, works pretty well for removing most of the film, but unfortunately a lot of glue was still left behind. Even though this was an old film, you never know what is going to leave a lot of glue behind or is going to pull clean until you actually get started on it. So when it comes to the installation, this is a frameless door, so what I'll do is I'll peel the entire release liner off the film and tuck the entire thing into the door. I don't remove any seals for most of these too. You can actually push a little bit on the glass, push it outwards, and then you'll be able to pull the seal back and just kind of slide that film down into the seal, and the whole thing will drop with some patience and some finesse. And then you just bring it back up, line it along those edges. Then we're gonna squeegee all the water out. Frameless doors are definitely one of my favorites to do. The thing that will make them difficult is being extra curved, like on a Corvette, or just a really tight seal down at the bottom edge for tucking the film in. So now let's do that same test again with the ceramic film, and look at that difference. Nice low number on that, barely can feel any heat there. That is the difference between ceramic and a regular film. So now jumping into the back, we still got to do the removal on the rest of the vehicle. The funny thing about these Camaros is they have such a tiny, easy to tint back window, but they give you no space to get back there. So what I had hoped is that the film would remove nice and clean, especially if I gave it some time with the steamer. But as you can see here, it left a ton of glue behind, and we don't want to do anything that will damage the defrosters. So here are 3 different chemicals that people will use for removing glue off of back windows. Windex works really well on like old purpley adhesives, but when it comes to modern glues, it doesn't seem to want to do much. So then I just jumped straight to the ATR. That definitely loosened it up a lot more, but didn't actually remove this glue as efficiently as what I see on a lot of different types of films. So it was still a lot of elbow grease, but after about 45 minutes to an hour of scrubbing and cleaning, and there we go. We got a super clean back window, well worth the struggles. Jumping over to the windshield, we have a similar situation. It's a very short window. It's not that hard to tint, but then they put the dashboard right in the way, all that big gauge cluster right there. So we're gonna do a process here called reverse rolling. I've showed it a couple times in some earlier videos if you want some more detail, but essentially we're gonna squeegee the entire outside of the window off. We're gonna peel this release liner in quarters, and then that's gonna expose the film underneath. Take our sprayer, spray everything down, and then we're gonna take that liner and gently rest that back on top of the film. So this will essentially loosen the entire thing up, but still protect the film underneath from getting lots of dirt in it. And then we're gonna jump over to the other side, roll the entire thing up. So we already did this on both sides of the glass, just kind of speeding things along here. Pick the rest of it up and roll it up like a poster. Then we're gonna jump over to the inside. And what I did here was I rolled out a lot more film. So I'm kind of just tackling this in halves where I unrolled most of it, and we're gonna tuck the film down just past that cluster, because if I tried to take the entire roll of film and shove it in that corner, it would pinch right against the glass, so there would be no way to actually unroll it. So we need to unroll it a little bit past where that gauge cluster is and just try and finesse the film as good as we can. I noticed that putting more film onto the glass is going to allow me to kind of shift it over down into that corner. So I took my time here, just wanted to be as careful as I could. The more times that the film falls away from the window and that you have to struggle with it, the more chances you have to introduce some dirt, even though you took the time to clean everything. So just kind of take your time. You have some moments to work with. So then we're going to just unroll the rest of the film along the window. And again, we've got kind of like a big gauge cluster down in that corner, and we have a decent sized mirror and housing up towards at the top. So there's kind of stuff all around, except for the passenger corner, which is where I'm going to finish this off over on the other side. So once I get this entire thing unrolled, I pull the liner a little bit early, tuck it up against the glass, spray things down ahead of time just because that windshield had a little bit of time to dry. So we'll wet it back down, put the film up there, and then once all the film is on the glass, we just have to squeegee everything out. So I'll shift it around to make sure everything is in place, kind of loosen it up at the glass and make sure all my edges are covered and I'm not tacking it in place, and then you're gonna see a big ugly light gap when you look out of it sitting in the driver's seat or anything like that. Everything's 100% covered, so it's just a matter of getting everything to kind of like lock down in place. So then I'll take my handled squeegee and push all these air pockets out in kind of a circular pattern. There's still water obviously in between the film and the glass here, so we want to use that water to our advantage and keep everything nice and like wet or lubricated as we're pushing this out in a circular pattern. This is actually really important because if you push it out kind of chaotically, what's going to happen is one of these big air pockets is then going to kind of pop back over where you squeegeed. And then if you just squeegee over that big dry spot, it's going to leave a big air trail behind. I've seen a lot of posts asking about this early on for a windshield. So you just want to make sure everything is kind of going out evenly, and you're using that water to keep all the air and film kind of released from the glass, because window tint has what is called a pressure sensitive adhesive. So when you push it down and it sticks to the glass, it's definitely going to start to lock in place more. So when we get down to this gauge cluster here, you can see I kind of put it off towards the end. That way I could make sure I've got everything kind of out of the window, and then I can focus on the most difficult part all in one go. So I'm going to take a side swipe, so this will get down a good chunk of the way. I use it in most back windows, but when something there's this tight, I'll grab this big green squeegee and kind of swipe along the bottom. I'll use that in tandem with a what is called a bulldozer and sweep that out underneath too. Basically, whatever will curve to the glass and kind of fit in place is going to be your ideal tool for the job. So you're not going to use each one of these tools for every car, but it's always handy to pick up some of these extra things because you never know when it's going to be the perfect squeegee for a job, especially one like this where, you know, it's a nicer car. You want to be extra particular about everything, and just look at the final product here. We did 5% all the way around in our ceramic, and we also did 35% on that windshield. So this thing just turned out super clean, really nice. Thanks a lot for bringing this one in. I really enjoyed doing it.